Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I have a very special treat. This is Jackie Aston. She is a therapist in the DMV area in DC and Maryland,
Mhm.
and I have met her personally. She's great, and she's an LCSW licensed clinical social worker doing therapy. So, hi, Jackie.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. And so today we're going to talk about something very interesting, which is something that Jackie brought up that she sees in her practice, which is the overlap between women with eating disorder behaviors being drawn to guys who have porn viewing and addictive behaviors in that area, right, Jackie?
Yeah, like unwanted porn use
Unwanted.
or compulsive pornography use.
So out of
Yeah.
control sexual behavior, Jen.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so you work with couples and individuals that you've witnessed this kind of dynamic?
Yeah, so I used to work at an eating disorder treatment center, but I've been in my own practice and I
Uh-huh.
did a group practice prior to that for a number of years already. But yes, I see individuals and couples, and I have a few couples who are currently experiencing what you're describing, the unwanted pornography use, and then they're linked up with a partner who has some eating disorder behaviors or disordered eating, which can be different.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So these people you think are drawn to each other frequently. And I see, well, I don't see as many women with eating disorder behaviors. I mean, they could have eating disorder behaviors, obviously, but I certainly have seen the link between the guy viewing porn and a woman with low self-esteem
yeah.
and bad body image and kind of it's really bi-directional. Do you
Yeah. Yeah, I think they tend there I think it makes sense why sometimes couples with these symptoms come together. And when I think about an eating disorder or I think about unwanted pornography use, there's usually an underlying mood issue or anxiety issue. Not always. Maybe they haven't figured out how to deal with their stressors. And it's not like a clinical diagnosis. But I think a lot of times it's each person is kind of underdeveloped emotionally, and then they come together. And I think I think that sort of makes sense. They're kind of at the same emotional developmental level.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like a teenager.
yeah, yes, you can kind of have people. It really depends if you think about when these behaviors start. For a lot of women, um, eating disorders are starting young when they're teens. Unfortunately, the age is getting younger, I think, for eating disorders. And then the pornography use is pretty young for boys. And they're
Yes,
just
it's dropping and
accessible.
dropping with the smartphones and everything. I
Hmm.
mean, it used to be like seeing your father's penthouse or something, and now like you could just Google anything, and even if your phone doesn't do it, if because your parents put up blocks, maybe the computer does it, or maybe your friend's phone does it, or somebody does it, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And I think and I'm mostly talking about men and women. I mean, I think that can be in couples
Sure.
outside of this kind of more traditional relationship. But when I'm thinking about some of the males that I've worked with who talk about the age they started viewing pornography, oftentimes it starts as curiosity. But then I think it kind of becomes a way for them to escape the stressors or the pressure, and it becomes their way, their tool essentially for dealing with life and stressors. And so that's where I think they get stunted because they're not growing and learning how to deal um, with life in a more, I'm going to say mature, but it's like a more developed way.
Yeah, like did you ever read Smashed by Corinne Zalkas? It was her, you should, it's good. It was a
Okay.
memoir of her alcohol use, and she started when she was super young. And she said that so like she was like maybe like 12 or 11 or 12 when she's had her first drink, and then it was just like a memoir of how like through college obviously she's like crazy binge drinking and like always blacking out, and she said basically she didn't know how to talk to a boy unless she was drunk, because
Yeah.
it started so young that
Yes.
she didn't have any idea how to flirt, how to talk. And like people, when she was sober, she said that people would think she was younger than she was because it's like
Hmm.
she
Hmm.
didn't ever keep developing like the
Yeah.
substance use. And eating disorder behaviors are addictive, I mean,
Hmm. Hmm.
same kind of thing. And porn obviously is addictive.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
start this addictive thing so young, and it kind of does. It short circuits your ability to mature into your adulthood and to develop those other skills of relating and
Hmm. Hmm.
engaging in a more mature way.
Hmm. Yeah, and you're talking about this woman who had difficulty relating to people or flirting. She didn't, I mean, there's a chance to settle down the anxiety probably most of us feel in those situations when we're first meeting somebody, and pushing through it. She had something else that she used that removed that stress from her, so she didn't really have to push herself through it and mature.
A lot of the women with eating disorder behaviors seem young.
Uh-huh. Yes. Yes, that's I definitely agree with that.
I've seen that, they and because you're thinking all the time. It's almost like there's like typical adolescent narcissism, like and it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of almost like it's not out of a good thing. It isn't narcissism, but it's like you're so obsessed like about like how you
Mm-hmm.
look and how you're coming off, and it goes with such an anxiety and a self-consciousness that it kind of is like that. And then who are these guys watching on the screen? I mean, it's just like the most caricatured, two-dimensional women that are not, they don't have to be younger. Sometimes they're older, but like they're acting in just these certain prescribed ways. They're not full people, obviously. They're
Mm-hmm.
like these
Mm-hmm.
two-dimensional constructs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think something else I've thought about with these behaviors is, a guy who's using pornography, um, also doesn't have to deal with a woman who potentially would reject him. So he can feel good about himself.
Yep.
Um, I think oftentimes there's a lot of guilt and shame for both of these types
Mhm.
of behaviors. Um, and I think women, so similarly, um, have an idea of what it would be, what it means to be desirable in like a superficial way, because you're talking about two-dimensional. There's not really much here that we're working on if we're focused on just the superficial. And so I don't think it's a problem to like, certain things or want certain things, but it to an extent where it just is so it preoccupies someone. They don't mature. It takes up so much brain space. Um, and it also it's not really about becoming the kind of person or partner we could be. It's sort of trying to be desirable according to what we think or
Yeah.
what someone thinks the world thinks.
And the guys are trying to be desirable too when they watch porn. It's like they learn this like really caricatured way of engaging sexually, which I talk about all the time in
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
podcast, is like when women say like he flips me from this position to this position and he's saying these
Hmm.
certain things, and it's
Hmm. Hmm.
like it's out of porn. Like it doesn't seem like
Hmm.
it's about us or me or what or him. It just seems like he's doing this like act.
Yes. So it isn't really about connecting in a deeper way or really seeing your partner and being with them. Um, and I think then that feels like, probably, the couple is missing each other and sex isn't as enjoyable for the woman. But I also think the man misses out too because he's not really, I think. I think there's just a lot of possibility when you're connecting with a person and you get to really notice their pleasure and be with them versus kind of some of these performative behaviors and what I should do and what I see in pornography. I don't know if I'm making sense with that.
Yeah, I think that both of these people are engaging in these separate these separate worlds, like in their own head. And in the sexual experience, the women are likely focusing on how they look and their body
Yes.
not being gross and disgusting. And you don't want to do certain positions. You don't want to turn the light on. You don't want to move in a way that could make your fat move or like
Hmm, hmm,
anything.
hmm.
So
Yeah, it's hard.
they're caught in their own head with some things that they're supposed to do and not supposed to do. The guy's caught in his own head with things they're not supposed to do. And then, of course, this is going to intersect a lot if he happens to make any comments about her body. And he's more
Yeah.
likely to make them if he's comparing them to the people on the screen.
It just sounds like a ball of anxiety,
Yeah.
And like that's not what kind of sex is that? That's anxiety really present in that kind of connection or dynamic.
Yeah. And so when you're working, do you have a lot of couples then where the guy does want her to act, not act, well, every guy, I guess plenty of guys want the woman to act more like porn, but want her
Hmm.
to look more like porn and specifically say that to a woman with eating disorder behaviors, because that would certainly be very triggering.
Yeah, I feel like what I've seen is actually a lot of the guys don't actually think that their partner should be this porn
Right.
star.
Right.
And um, but I do think they have anxiety around connecting with a whole woman. And I think the woman can interpret it as, well, I'm not good enough, I'm not desirable enough, feel insecure, and it can trigger her eating disorder behaviors and her anxiety. But I don't actually think it's about her, and I don't think the men I typically see think it is about her. I think some do, which it's not, but I think
Right.
some of them do.
A lot of them are bored. A lot of the guys I see are bored, after so many years of marriage, they want it to be a certain way. They want it to be more exciting.
Mhm.
Even though intellectually they know the women in porn aren't enjoying it, some of them think that they are because they're watching amateur porn. As soon as they
Mhm,
say
mhm,
amateur porn, then already they think
mhm,
this is
mhm,
like, random woman that's just I always say, like, what percent of women allow themselves to be filmed during sex? You're talking
mhm,
about
mhm,
0.00001%.
mhm,
Even
mhm,
if it was consensual amateur stuff, that
mhm,
is an
mhm,
unusually attention-seeking person.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
You know? So yeah, they want it to be more exciting and they want it to be more more of an escape. Like you're saying, if they're using it to
Mhm,
self-regulate and they're using it to not be anxious, it's got to be a better drug. It's like not a good
mhm.
drug if it's kind of boring and quick and not that exciting, you know?
Yeah, it's just a very different way of connecting with another person because it's not actually about connecting. It's about either a release or just someone else sort of, yeah, dealing with their own stuff in this way. And I think the woman picks up on it. I don't think she feels desired, but she also, again, could be in her own head and make it about her, which
Yeah.
it's not. Um, but I think, both behaviors can be, I think, another issue I think that happens in these kinds of relationships is the behaviors can be secretive. So if you have a partner who's hiding,
Yeah.
that's um, and maybe not honest about things. I think it's sort of that impacts the emotional relationship as well.
Well, both of those things would be hidden, eating disorder
Hmm.
behaviors and porn
Hmm.
use.
Yeah. So it's really a lot of masking and not really being seen. And I think these behaviors can be tough for people to get out of.
Mhm.
And I think some of the things that they're having to do is really face, if they're willing, and when there is to really go into what is going on that's driving the eating disorder or the pornography use. And oftentimes, it's life stressors. It's feeling like lack of control. It's feeling anxious at work. And so, well, I can escape it versus deal with it seems easier. It has the long-term consequences because no, we're not actually really settled if we're escaping. We're just temporarily distracted. And then
Mhm.
you see the partners come home and they're anxious or sometimes they're feeling guilty because they missed time at work and they were doing something that wasn't helpful for them. And then that carries on into the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, and so how do you see it go with sex addiction as well? Because Sometimes it's, I mean, porn, or obviously they're using porn if the most sex addicts are using porn, but sometimes it turns into kind of using the person's body over and over as the way to escape.
So what's your question? How do you see it?
With the actual like over, especially with young couples, I see these guys that basically sometimes say I need to have sex every day, like I need to have
Mm-hmm.
sex every day because, and they don't say because it's how I self-regulate, they just say because I'm high libido. So it's like they're not necessarily using
Mm-hmm.
porn, even though they are usually using porn, but like they're basically saying like this is the way that I calm down, and the kind of woman that's going to go along with that is usually a woman with lower self-esteem. That's like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, I guess I have a role here. I guess he won't leave me if I have sex with him every single day for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So then that dynamic is like co-constructed, it's co-created, but it's not, doesn't make for good sex. And I think, the client, the male would have to figure out, he could get some support, how to regulate his emotions in another way, because using his partner to do it in that way um, can screw up the relationship.
Yeah, and a lot of women are like complicit in that when they're young. And
Hmm.
then,
Hmm.
'cause,
Hmm.
you do have a higher sex drive when you're young and your
Hmm.
body works different. All right, fine. I guess this is what we'll do.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
as she gets older and her to her perimenopause, and especially menopause, she's like,
Hmm.
no, what? It's not like he
Hmm.
could still perform at the same capacity as when he was in his 20s. But if they're in this dynamic where she regulates him,
Hmm. Hmm.
sexually, that really jumps the shark in midlife. I'll tell
Yes.
you.
I think she also sometimes does it to regulate her because if her partner is, has lower anxiety, then she might feel like her anxiety
Mhm.
is lower because she's triggered when her partner's anxiety is higher. So
Yeah.
she's doing herself a disservice and her partner when she does that.
Yeah, because then it's not sex. It's just like mood regulation or like a pacifier or something.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about women, they're tired of doing it at some point. So they feel resentful. It's not really enjoyable or helpful to the relationship.
Or when the baby comes is a big one. When a woman becomes
Yes.
a mother. And that can, I mean, that can amplify some eating disorder behaviors, but I've also seen it like really help some women to be like, you know what, my body is different. It feeds a baby, it held a
Yeah.
baby, and to give, do you see some women kind of that be the inflection point where they're ready to really kind of work on and even try to slough off the eating disorder?
I think it can feel different during that period of pregnancy and even postpartum when someone's nursing. And it sort of is like the eating disorder is in remission. And sometimes it can stay that way, but then symptoms can come back later when you're no longer feeling like your body is giving to somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that we have experiences in our life that make us think, do we want to keep up in the dynamics that we're going at in? And we become a little wiser. And I think the couples I'm seeing, I think they don't want this to have such an impact on their life and have so much power over them. I think I mean, I'm seeing a lot of couples who like each other, but which is not always the case. But I think that
I
they
see a lot
don't
of
want to,
couples that hate each other.
yeah, and that happens too. Um, but I think they want to feel better about themselves, and they know this isn't helping their relationship. So I think that they're willing to face themselves. It's a process
Yeah.
and say, well, how can I get a handle on my anxiety? How can I show up at work differently or in my relationship or as a parent differently? And if you can handle that, then you don't need the soothing, the distracting that's only temporary anyway.
Yeah, it's like Soma. I always say, the Brave New World. Remember when they took the drug, Soma? That's like they would
Okay.
take a pill whenever they had a negative feeling. It was a dystopian
Okay.
novel.
Oh,
It's like that's
yeah.
what porn is. That's what any of
Mm-hmm.
these behaviors are. The eating disorder behaviors, purging,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out your super rigid eating routine, all of these things. For a
Mm-hmm.
lot of, it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because for a lot of women, that I work with, the eating disorder stuff, they don't want their daughters or their sons, they don't want their kids to see it, you know?
Yes,
So it's a
yes.
huge motivator, right? To not do it. And if you're with your kids all the time, you don't have a lot of time to do it. So it can really kind of help you if you're feeding somebody 3 meals a day. Maybe you'll start eating 3 meals a
Hmm,
day. I mean, of
hmm,
course, some people don't, but it can be very helpful. But the porn stuff, it's always been private. It's always gonna be private. So a lot of men silo it completely and they think that it has no impact on them as a husband, as a father in any way. And it's just this completely private, hidden things. It's not like drinking where then they're drunk, when they show up
hmm,
with the
hmm,
kids.
hmm,
They put it in their minds as just completely different. And so it takes a lot of work to see that even though nobody's seeing you use porn, the ways that you're acting, the ways that you're thinking about relationships and intimacy and touch and men and women, it's like
hmm,
it's
hmm.
all coming out.
Yes, yes, I think that is true. They don't see really the impact. They say it's very separate,
Yeah.
but then they come home uh, drained or irritable, and well, I'm even thinking, yeah, so they come home drained and irritable, and then they have to go escape and use pornography. And so, I mean, or they might not really connect and settle themselves down and be present at dinner because they haven't used the pornography yet. And so they're just sort of like agitated, you
Yes.
know.
Yes, yes. And the guys that I see that are older, at least that come in to me, because I'm so vocal about stop using porn, don't use porn, whatever. They do
Hmm,
stop using porn. A lot of them
hmm,
don't.
hmm, hmm,
Some
hmm,
of them do, but then they say like we don't have sex, we don't have enough
hmm,
sex. So I need something basically,
hmm, hmm,
I want there's such a conflation between sex as like self-regulating versus, sex for the relationship. And of course, like it's nice to help a partner co-regulate with sex or with
hmm, hmm,
anything else. But if the only way they could calm down and they say basically, I'm going to be irritable unless I have sex every 3 days and you don't want me using porn, right?
hmm, hmm, hmm,
Then it can feel very trapping for women,
hmm.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, especially if the man is sulking, and make punishes her for it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's how are they going to deal with that differently? Because there's lots of ways that actually really can settle us and be helpful. So, and I actually think, at least what I see with my clients, is the eating disorder behaviors and the pornography use doesn't often get them into the headspace to then be able to better focus at work. It relieves some anxiety, but I don't think it actually
For
shifts
sure.
the mind space or the headspace. It just sort of temporarily quiets down the anxiety.
Yeah, and then it comes back, and then you have to do it all the time. And then if you skip
Yes.
a day, or you don't do a day, or you eat the wrong thing, or you don't jerk
Mm-hmm.
off in the morning, then you're all messed up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of the work, as you're saying, is helping people think about different ways that they can self-regulate and can understand and can sit with the feelings of discomfort of that are normal
Mm-hmm.
parts of being a human being, right?
Yes, which I think is so much better because then you have a different relationship with food and you have a different relationship with sex.
Yeah.
Sex doesn't have to be about, an anxiety release. It can be about pleasure. It can be about connection. And yes, someone can feel pleasure using pornography, but if they're using it in a way, just as an anxiety release, it's different than really about connection or pleasure. And same for food. It's like you can enjoy your food. You want to have a relationship with food. It's a relationship with cleaning. It's sort of the relationship, I think, with things
Yeah.
that we can struggle with because we're using them as ways to regulate versus like really making a choice about when we're going to do these things and really be able to enjoy it when we're there and not feel guilty because we don't actually feel really good about how we're using our time and when we're doing things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, anything could be used like that, like work or
Yes, yes,
exercise or socializing. I mean, just anything can just be used to self-regulate as some kind of a medicine.
yes.
Yeah.
So.
So how do you help couples? I know your approach is going to be a callback to my earlier podcast with
Hmm.
Kat and Paula,
Hmm.
who you know.
Yes, yes,
Funny, which is the differentiation based schnar crucible approach, correct?
yes, yes. And I heard you in the podcast say it's not religious, even though it
It's
might
not
sound like
religious.
it.
There's no
It's not.
crucifixion involved.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, I like the couples together because I think learn they get a better picture of what their partner is going through, so they have more compassion. Usually, I think it helps the man and the woman if this is like a heterosexual couple, um, not take things so personally and
Yeah.
not be so charged. They don't maybe want to keep in this dynamic or they shouldn't put up with certain things, but I think it does help. So yes, like Kat and Paula, I do a similar approach. It's differentiation based, and each person is working on their own stuff and shifting the dynamic in the session together.
You know what's interesting though? A lot of men blame women because you're saying about taking it on yourself and not taking
Hmm.
things. A lot of men blame women for their porn use, but I don't see women blame men for their eating disorder stuff. Maybe the patriarchy wants me to look a
Yeah.
certain way, but I don't really see it unless the guy's like a total asshole and he's like telling her she's
Hmm.
got to be a certain weight. And I don't see that a lot anymore, even over
Mm-mm,
the course
mm-mm.
of my 16 years. Guys terrified to say something like that, at least in
Hmm. Hmm.
couples therapy. Holy shit. But,
Hmm.
a man will say, like, well, we don't have sex. That's why I use porn. That's not why you use porn
Hmm.
every day. Like that's not it. That's not why you use
Hmm.
like 2 hours of porn. That's not why you use
Hmm.
whatever porn
Hmm.
you use. That's not why are compulsive
Hmm.
about it.
Hmm.
So it's,
Yeah, I mean, I think men can blame women. I think some know that it is their issue. Um, but I think I'm trying to help couples develop themselves and help their relationships so that they can have the kind of sex that they want to have. So I think sometimes women and men don't want to be in a sexual encounter with one another because they're anxious or they're frustrated with each other. So I think it's easier to turn to pornography, or it's easier to say, well, my partner doesn't desire me because they're only into pornography. And I think sometimes there's just underlying issues in the relationship, and it's easy to blame the other person, but there's other things that are contributing to why they may not want to have sex with each other.
yeah, a million things. There's a million variables. As I talk about all the time, we're not meant to keep having sex at a breakneck pace over the entirety of our lifespan. I mean, geez, it's just how, like, you're supposed to be in love with somebody. And I talk about this all the time. For 1.5 to 3 years is the length of the honeymoon stage. You meet a
Mhm.
man, you get pregnant, you have a baby, you wean a baby, you move on, and you get pregnant with another man. And when you're done being able to get pregnant, most women don't really want to do it. No kidding. Oh, what is going on? Like,
Mhm.
why would you? But yes, of course, in a close, loving relationship, you can make sexual intimacy a priority and you can still experience desire. But the guys that watch a lot of porn, they think it's supposed to continue like a galloping horse down until death. I mean, it's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with
Mhm.
like humanity or lifespans or mammals or anything. You
I
know?
wonder if it's more about the women no longer being willing to have sex or not finding the kind of sex that they're having desirable.
Yeah, but
And
at 70 years old, you're not most women aren't
yes,
kind of.
yes, I
That's who I'm
understand
working with
that.
a lot of the time. I
Yeah.
said to one guy, he thought it was so funny. I said, "You're having a three-quarter life crisis." He says
Okay.
you should. He says you should patent that. He said that's a marketing opportunity for you to talk about.
Yes.
But there are so many real variables, is my point. And these guys with these
Yeah.
watching this MILF and this GILF and all this
Yes,
shit.
yes.
It's like they're like, oh, well, this woman's screwing at 65. Why doesn't my wife want to? And I'm like, Do you have any idea what an outlier this woman is and how much she's got to lube up and
Yes.
take a ibuprofen? I mean, not to be graphic, but I mean, this
Well, it's a distorted view. I think
is
that's what you're saying. Yes.
disgusting.
And then it can lead to more frustration because this isn't,
And
you
it's
can't keep this
just
up.
like the eating disorder women that are saying to me, "Oh, I'm menopausal," but I look at these other women on Instagram or whatever, and they still have a waistline and this and that. It's like
Yeah.
that isn't real, A. Like those like
Yeah.
0.2% of women with enough money to go to the personal trainer every day and get on a ton of hormones. And this is just turning into a rant, but there is a lifespan,
Yeah.
and we have different stages. And of course, you're less
Yeah.
willing to have sex you don't want to have when you're young, but when you're young, you want to have sex. That's a big variable. That's a big
You know what
variable.
I see with the clients, like getting kind of thinking about how I work with them, is I feel like clients can have resistance to redefining desire and desirability.
100%.
And they're like, I'd rather it be that I'm just like pretty and thin on the outside, that that's really what it means. Because honestly, that is more concrete. And even though someone may not be able to achieve the ideal, it feels like, well, I can keep losing weight. I can be desirable in this way. But
Yeah, it's
it's
some
just,
kind of autonomy or agency, I can be thin, I can eat less than everybody, I can exercise compulsively, at least it's within my control, whereas aging is not in my control.
and it's not as challenging, although it's difficult to be in those behaviors, as being the kind of partner that would be desirable. I mean,
Yeah,
where we're being fair to our partner or giving or considerate and showing up or I don't know, it's just not as defined. It's sort of like, well, if I can be this, which I know,
yeah,
that's easier than sort of like, who do I want to be as a woman or a mom or a partner or a professional? I think
yeah.
those are anxiety-inducing questions because
They're
we're having to figure
existential
that out.
issues. Yeah. They're existential issues, and it's better to say, I'm just going to go along with what I always thought. Or for men, you know how many men get so depressed if they're not. Now with Viagra and everything, a lot of men can keep getting hard, but it's still not like things don't go how they used to go,
Hmm.
So if sex was only one way and it was one thing of like having intercourse in this exact way and this exact style, I talk about this a lot where I say
Hmm.
sex needs to evolve when you're older. Your bodies don't
Yeah.
work the same. You don't look the same. You don't get as aroused as quickly or as easily. Not everybody has an orgasm in every encounter. But if you've been
Hmm.
watching
Hmm.
porn for decades, which a lot of guys have, they're like, yeah, well, but you can because, because these people do it on the screen and then I feel inferior and inadequate because
Hmm.
I am
Hmm.
different
Hmm.
now and because I don't act like I used to and like these guys do on the television or not television
Hmm.
anymore, phone.
Yes. Yeah. I try and figure out with these couples where some of these ideas come from. And sometimes it's their own families, the way that they operate in their own relationships, sometimes their own ideas about women, about beauty, about desirability. And I think that can also help each person start to settle down and see, well, this makes sense. I know why my brain is doing this. I know why I go to this escape. And then they're having to really think about, what do I really think? What do I really believe? Who do I really want to be? Um, and deal with that anxiety that comes with those questions that we don't like, that's a little uncomfortable for us.
Yes, it's an existential meaning of life, kind of who am I? What am I going to
Hmm.
be? What's the meaning? Like,
Hmm.
I always think like if I could get back all that time that I spent worrying about how I looked,
Hmm.
and do
Hmm.
the hair and blah blah blah, you know. So some women are doing it. I mean, I'm on the low end for like how long I take to put on makeup. There are women putting on hours of makeup. It's like at a certain point, like you gotta think, why and what would you do with that time if I had a younger client that said to me, and I never thought about it before. She was in her 20s at the time, and she said that like it wasn't. that she wanted to work from home because of all the labor involved in getting ready to go to work that's different for men and women. At first,
Hmm.
I thought, well, that's crazy young person stuff. Like, well, though, like you do have to, like,
Hmm.
you do have to put on the makeup, blah, 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 or at least
Hmm.
many of us think you have to, and we're
Hmm.
inculcated in
Hmm.
that, and we both have makeup on right now,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it's like
Yeah.
it does take a lot of fucking time. And then if
Yeah.
on top of that you're thinking, as I used to think too, what am I eating today? And what blah, 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 and what are the
Hmm. Hmm.
calories?
Hmm.
And what are this? It's just so much time that you could be. And then in midlife, your hormones change, your desire to be primarily a sexually attractive object changes. And then you're like, God, all that time, what could I have been living instead of looking at
Hmm.
myself or worrying about what my physical corpus was doing.
Yes. Yes. I think people feel motivated more when they see the impact on their kids.
For
And
sure.
they're like, well, I'm going to screw up my kids here if I don't
Yes.
change some things. Not
Yes.
only in my food or in my porn use, but it's impacting my relationship. So if I don't do that, I'm going to be hurting them.
Yeah.
Um,
Like you don't like as a woman, like you don't want your girls to look in the mirror and think, oh, I look less than, if I don't put on
mhm,
makeup or I don't do this or I don't do that. So it can be,
mhm,
I didn't go out the house without makeup until I was in my probably 10 years ago for the first time.
mhm,
Maybe less. I mean, maybe it was 5 years ago, whatever it was. And then I was like, but if I'm putting on makeup every single day and I look like my daughters, then what am I showing them?
mhm,
I
mhm,
got to do it. I mean, it's one thing if you love to just, party, work. I don't know. I
mhm,
mean, I
mhm,
still probably am saying something that is going to be disproven, but
mhm,
or like, is going to seem old to young people. Everything I say seems old to young people.
mhm,
But, it's like I was putting on mascara to go to the gym. Why the fuck would somebody
mhm,
do that? Right? I mean,
mhm,
but
mhm.
everybody I knew did it.
Yes. Yeah. So kids pick that up.
Of
Or
course.
they see their mom body checking in a
Yeah.
mirror and making comments about their body.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, I mean, it sounds like you think that people, like some people who are really entrenched in the eating disorder, and it's such a way to deal with the anxiety. I think they have a hard time in midlife. And in fact, maybe you've seen this too, is midlife can be a period where there's sort of an increase in eating disorder behaviors
Yeah,
because of
because
the
the
life
release
transition.
thickens and the hormones
Yes,
change,
yeah,
and all these women say I eat the exact same things, but I don't look the same, so I guess I got to eat a lot less.
yes, yeah. So, and again, if it's really, I think it's really more about control and dealing with anxiety, that even though it might not like make sense, it makes sense. And
Yeah.
but there are other ways of dealing it. So in therapy, in couples work or individual work, you can, figure out how to get a handle on it. But the anxiety isn't going to totally go away because all of us get stressed about things. We
Yeah.
all have things that are challenging for us. But I think we feel better when we handle it in a way that like aligns with our values and that we think is going to be good for us, our kids. Um, we're
Yeah.
just not going to be perfect at it. There's just no such thing
Yeah, but
either.
sometimes people really do have an epiphany. And after therapy and after thinking about all
Hmm.
these different ways, I have seen people just quit porn, just quit the eating disorder behaviors,
Yeah.
quit drinking. It's like when people get into therapy, I'm sure you see it. They're like
Hmm.
waiting. They want to change, unless
Yeah.
it's like mandated, they're like dragged in by their spouse. But if they're
Yeah.
seeking out therapy, it's like there's like a crack, and it's like sometimes they get rid of some of this, just really
Yes.
just get rid of it. It's amazing, to
Yeah.
cure anxiety. You really can at the right moment. Not all anxiety forever about everything, but like people have these epiphanies. They're like, I'm not gonna like hit my kid anymore, or I'm not gonna
Hmm.
drink anymore, or I'm gonna stop using this drug or whatever. And that's like
Yes.
that's the money shot. That's what we're in this field for.
Yes, yes. And people are willing to spend, I mean, it takes time and money and invest in that because I think it can be freeing because they're not all in their head and feeling bad and shame and guilt, and they're helping themselves and it trickles down
Yeah.
into, their family life and their kids and such.
Yeah, and the kids start saying different things. When my daughter, my middle daughter was little, she's like 5. I don't know how little she was, but she's like, you and me both have big butts, right? And I was like, what? Like imagine saying that, like you're a little younger than me, but imagine saying that to your mother. I mean, what? That would have been
Hmm.
an insult, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
years ago. And she's like smiling, and I'm like, oh, and then and she says, that's good. And I said, oh, and then like I start like hearing more, like paying more attention, like, oh, having a fat ass now, good, like whatever.
Hmm.
That either she or I even have. That's the funniest part. But like she was
Hmm.
looking at me. I'm shaped different. I'm a grown woman. Of course, she was a little
Hmm.
girl, but she's looked like me. And she was like smiling, looking herself in the mirror. My God, that did not happen. Like with my mother, if there was
Yes, yes.
anything that was similar in our bodies, man, was she apologetic, that she
Mm,
gave me the genes
yeah.
of that. And of course, like, but I remember I was saying when I had the girls, do you have girls or boys? What do you have?
Yes, I have two girls.
Yeah, and I remember saying, "Well, I'm gonna fake this. They are never
Mm-hmm.
gonna catch me because my mother is the generation they're dieting all the time,
Hmm.
looking at yourself in the mirror with this expression like you're attending a funeral, like
Hmm.
every like,
Hmm.
oh no, I look this way." I was like, they're not gonna see it. So when she did that, I was like, well, I guess I did good because it was none in her mind that that could be bad. Like looking like
Yeah.
me was not bad. It was good, and we looked
Yeah.
good,
She's just
and
saying what she's seeing. She's
yeah.
just sort of like, it's okay.
Yeah, and
Uh,
happy, which I was never happy. Like I didn't even know that was a
mm,
possibility. You
yes.
remember, like the girls now are so different. They bond over being pretty. Is that weird?
Mm,
It's so weird. It's like
mm,
disconcerting. We used to
hmm,
bond over being
hmm.
ugly. Like I have so many, I have
Interesting. My
so
kids are
many
still
best friends.
young. Yeah.
Yeah, but you'll see when they're teenagers, like, oh, we look hot. I was like,
Hmm.
never in my life, in my most
Hmm.
confident moment at 25 years old, I never would have
Hmm.
thought to bond with another female by saying so. Never.
Hmm.
Like, it
Hmm.
was like, oh, I guess we ate too much on vacation, or I guess our faces were oily there, or oh my
Hmm.
God, I didn't put on this is so different now. And I think it's better. It's better not to be burdened with, oh my God, I have to change how I look or I'm gonna die, you know?
Yes, as long as the pendulum doesn't swing too far where it's like we can feel good
The total
because we're thin
narcissism.
and beautiful, then that's another thing. But yes, definitely that they can feel good in their bodies. And I mean some people their parents can be cruel to them and say you shouldn't feel good in your body because you don't look good or you need to lose weight.
It's always when
And
they look like the parent too. It's like always,
mm,
or
mm-hmm,
at least like when they're like, oh, you look like me. How dare you be proud of your body, because you look
mm-hmm,
like me and I
mm-hmm,
don't have
mm-hmm,
good self-esteem.
mm-hmm. But I think, I mean, I'm like you. I want my kids to feel good in their bodies. And so, and it just can be even this neutral thing. If not
Yeah, body
positive, neutral,
neutrality. That's the
right?
goal.
What'd you say?
The body neutrality is the goal. It sounds so good. It's almost like a
Yes.
fiction, but
Yes.
people are doing it. They really are. As
Yes.
I get older and older, I really am like, well, it's just my body, for Christ's sake. What was all the problem about,
Yeah.
It's such a
Yes.
different philosophy now. It really is.
Yes. Yes. It takes me from point A to point B, and I can do this with lift something. Not, it's, I think that can be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, body neutrality is good. There needs to be body neutral porn. That's the next frontier.
Okay. Are you going to develop
Gonna
that?
help develop body neutral porn. But
Good, good.
I bet it is more like the amateur
Yeah.
porn. I don't know. But I mean, before we devolve too much here. So your favorite people to work with are couples, you're saying, right? Or is
I like
it individuals
individuals.
as well?
Yeah, I like individuals and couples. I also do premarital
Oh,
counseling.
do you?
So I have the couples who
How long you been
just
married?
uh it's 9 years now.
Oh, congratulations. Oh, what are
So
you gonna do for 10? I guess
what'd you say?
I said, what are you gonna do for 10? But I guess that's
We've already been thinking. We're like, can we go abroad? Can we
yeah, take
do
some big trip.
I know we're taking a trip this weekend away and we're going to Charleston this weekend because I remember you said you studied
Yes, I
there.
did my internship there.
Yes.
It's
So our
beautiful.
anniversary was in the summer and we've been wanting to take a trip, so we plan to do it.
Wait,
this
you're
week.
10. Oh no, you're 9 years.
9, yeah. So
But
10, yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
any recommendations for
Oh,
10?
in Charleston, man, I don't remember anything. I was
Well, I'm saying for 10 because we were
oh
like,
for 10, for
yeah, you
10.
know
Go
what?
see.
Who puts we these are old YouTube videos, but like have you ever seen Rick Steves videos on Europe? And so we've been watching, we're like, should we go to Switzerland? Should we
Oh, you should
go?
do all of them. You should
Yes.
go away for like the
Yes, it
longest
just
time.
need, the childcare is the hardest part, but we're excited.
But all right, well, that's cool. Well, that's cool. So if anybody here, this was fun. It was
It
fun
was,
having you.
yeah.
And if
Thank
anybody
you.
here that is listening wants to work with Jackie, I'm gonna have all of her information in the episode description. And you can refer back to also the podcast with Kat and Paula, who do the differentiation
Yeah.
approach, and to my podcast with Jen Rowland, who talked about eating disorders and
Yeah.
who we both know too,
Yeah.
and also to everything I've ever written and said about porn and don't use porn and don't use porn and don't use porn. I used to be so much more positive about it till I was seeing what it was doing to relationships and
Mhm.
just don't use that porn. But okay, thank you so much for coming and
Well, thanks,
everybody, thank
Samantha.
you for listening. Bye.
Bye.